There is a moment in almost every person's life when money suddenly starts moving toward them faster than usual. A raise lands, a side hustle takes off, a deal closes bigger than expected. Most people treat that moment like a reward they finally earned. Very few people understand that it is actually a test. What you do in the next 90 days after that window opens will decide whether you remember this year as the year everything changed or just another year that came and went. This has nothing to do with luck being fair. It has everything to do with what a person does the moment pressure finally lifts. Stay with me, because the next part explains exactly why that window closes faster than anyone expects. Momentum in money is not permanent. It behaves more like weather than like a personality trait. The market shifts. The client moves on. The platform changes its algorithm. The manager who promoted you gets replaced. None of these things are under your control, and none of them ask for your permission before they change. People who have lived through a full financial cycle know this in their bones. The people who have not yet lived through one assume the good months will simply keep repeating, because that is what the last few months did. That assumption is the single most expensive mistake a person can make with money. History is full of people who rode a hot streak so hard, they forgot streaks are temporary by definition. The ones who came out ahead were never the ones with the biggest peak. They were the ones who treated the peak as a countdown instead of a permanent new normal. Keep watching, because what happens right after the window opens is where most people quietly lose everything they just gained. Here is the pattern that repeats in almost every story of financial regret. When someone has nothing, they hustle hard. They wake up early. They say yes to every opportunity. Then the first real paycheck or the first big win arrives, and something flips. The same person who was disciplined while broke suddenly feels entitled to relax the moment money shows up. A new car appears. A nicer apartment gets signed. A closet gets replaced. None of these purchases are evil on their own. The problem is timing. Spending like you have already made it before you have actually secured it is how people turn a life-changing opportunity into a temporary upgrade that vanishes within a year. If you have ever wondered why some people seem to earn a lot and still end up back at zero, this is exactly why. It is never really about how much came in. It is about how quickly it went right back out the door, dressed up as a reward. The people who actually build lasting wealth follow one boring rule that nobody wants to hear. The moment extra money arrives, the first move is not a reward. The first move is to lock it down and let it sit completely still. Not invested in something exciting. Not loaned out. Not spent on anything that signals success to other people. Just parked somewhere, boring and untouched long enough for the emotional high of getting it to fade. This single habit separates people who turn one good year into permanent financial security from people who turn one good year into a story they tell about what almost happened. It feels boring in the moment, and that is exactly the point. Boring is what survives. Exciting is usually what disappears first. Coming up is the part of this pattern that quietly destroys more fortunes than bad luck ever does. Nothing wrecks a good financial run faster than leverage taken at the exact moment someone feels invincible. Leverage is simply spending money you have not actually earned yet, based on the belief that tomorrow will look like today. It feels harmless when things are going well. It feels like a shortcut to move even faster. The danger is that leverage does not care how confident you feel. It only cares about whether the future actually shows up the way you predicted. People who borrow big during their best months are betting their entire foundation on a streak continuing forever. Streaks always end. When they end while someone is leveraged, the fall does not just erase the recent gains. It frequently erases years of prior progress at the same time. This is exactly why people who have survived a downturn treat borrowed money like fire. Useful from a safe distance and dangerous the moment it gets too close. The most confident moment of your financial life is usually the most expensive moment to make a mistake. Because confidence is exactly when people stop double-checking their own decisions. There is a second trap that catches people off guard precisely because it looks like kindness instead of risk. A friend or a family member finds out you're doing well and asks to borrow some money. Saying yes feels generous in the moment. What actually happens is far more expensive than the dollar amount involved. Once money crosses that line between two people, the relationship changes permanently, whether the loan gets repaid or not. If it gets repaid late, there is tension every time you see each other. If it never gets repaid, there is resentment that quietly poisons the relationship for years. The healthiest financial boundary anyone can set is learning to say no to people they love without feeling guilty about it. Protecting your own foundation is not selfish. It is the only way you will ever be in a strong enough position to actually help anyone in the future. A person with no foundation of their own cannot rescue anyone else for very long, no matter how good their intentions are. Keep this in mind, because the next section explains what protecting money actually buys you over time. Here is the part almost nobody explains clearly. Wealth is not built by one incredible year. Wealth is built by refusing to let any single year get wiped out by a bad decision. Every time money gets blown on status purchases, the clock on compounding resets back to zero. Every time someone takes on risky leverage and it fails, the clock resets again. Every time a loan to a friend disappears, the clock resets one more time. The people who end up financially secure 20 years from now are rarely the ones who had the single best year of income. They are the ones who never let their progress get interrupted. Consistency beats intensity every single time money is involved. A modest amount protected and left alone for a decade will outperform a huge amount that gets reset to 0 3 separate times along the way. Time is the only ingredient in this entire process that cannot be rushed bought or replaced once it has been wasted. Every reset is really a decision to trade years of future growth for a few weeks of feeling impressive right now. None of this requires a complicated system. The next time money arrives faster than usual, the first question to ask is simple. Does this purchase make my foundation stronger, or does it just make me look successful to other people? If the honest answer is that it only makes you look successful, the money needs to sit still instead. The next question is just as simple. Am I about to borrow against a future that has not actually happened yet? If the answer is yes, that decision needs a much longer pause before moving forward. The last question matters just as much as the first two. Am I about to hand money to someone out of guilt instead of genuine ability to give it away? Slowing down long enough to ask these three questions before spending is the entire difference between a windfall that changes your life and a windfall that becomes a memory. Write these three questions down somewhere you will actually see them again. A sticky note on a wallet works. A reminder on a phone works. The tool does not matter. What matters is having a pause built into the system before the money leaves your hands. Because the version of you that just got paid is not always the version of you that makes the smartest decision. Making money takes courage because it means showing up when things are uncertain and putting in effort before any result is guaranteed. Keeping money takes something completely different. It takes the discipline to stay boring when everyone around you is celebrating. It takes the patience to let money sit still when every instinct says to move fast and enjoy it. Most financial advice focuses entirely on how to make more. Almost nobody talks about how to protect what you already have long enough for it to actually grow. The next time your income jumps, remember that the real prize is not the number that lands in your account. The real prize is whether that number is still there and has grown into something bigger a decade from now. That decision gets made in the first few weeks after the money arrives, and it gets made quietly with no one watching. Nobody claps when you choose not to buy something. Nobody posts about the loan you politely turned down. Nobody sees the leverage offer you walked away from. That silence is exactly why so few people manage to do it. The reward for staying disciplined during your best moment does not show up right away. It shows up years later as a kind of security that money spent on appearances could never buy. If this window is open for you right now, the smartest thing you can do is close your hand around it and refuse to let it slip through your fingers before it has a real chance to grow.